Welcome to this Dodge Poetry program in collaboration with Undocupoets entitled Undocumented Futures. I'm Isabel Gonzalez, producer for Poetry and Social Impact here at NJPAC. This event is part of the National Poetry Coalition's 2025 programming on the theme of poetry and shelter. Undocupoets is in its 10th year and offers fellowship, shelter, and another home to poets who are currently or were formerly undocumented in the United States. Take this journey with us as four of their phenomenal fellows, Blue, Wo Chan, Claudia Rojas, and Georgio Russell, take the virtual stage to imagine what the future of the literary landscape entails for poets writing from the undocumented experience. After their reading, we will end the recording and conclude with a curated reading from other poets in the undocumented diaspora. And I also want to mention that if you have a teen who loves writing poetry, we're offering free workshops in Newark. So bring your kids out. We'll put the link to the workshops in the chat. And finally, I want to thank the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation for their gracious support. And thank you for tuning in. I would now like to introduce one of Undocupoets' co-organizers, Janine Joseph, an esteemed poet who has served with the organization since 2016. Thank you and welcome, Janine.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for that wonderful introduction and for inviting all of us to be part of Dodge Poetry and the National Poetry Coalition's 2025 programming on the theme of poetry and shelter. Thank you all for being here tonight. As Isabel said, I'm Janine Joseph, and with Esther Lynn and Marcelo Hernandez Castillo, I co-organize Undocupoets, a national nonprofit literary organization that began as a letter campaign in protest of the immigration status-based discriminatory practices of poetry book contests. In the decade since its co-founding by Marcelo Hernandez Castillo, Christopher Soto, and Javier Zamora, Undocupoets has promoted the work of poets who are currently or who were formerly undocumented in the US and raised awareness about the structural barriers in the literary community. Undocupoets has since boosted the visibility and careers of 21 Undocupoets Fellows, 4 of whom are featured in tonight's event, as well as an additional 33 poets whose work was included in our groundbreaking anthology, Here to Stay, Poetry and Prose from the Undocumented Diaspora. As Isabel mentioned, tonight's event will also feature readings by 5 additional poets from our extended Undocupoets community. In a moment, I'll be sending the spotlight back over to our first reader of the evening, Blue, but wanted to read a few timely words shared on social media by Brian Borland of Sibling Rivalry Press, our first shelter. Brian wrote, "Sibling Rivalry Press changed the literary world without institutional support. It can be done. Keep fighting, keep writing, keep inventing. If there's not a door into the house in which you want to live, build one. If you have trouble building that door, break down the wall and walk through, then pull others through along with you. And if things still remain closed to you, build a whole new house." Thank you again for sharing this moment with us, and I hope that you enjoy this reading and conversation among past and current recipients of the annual Undocupoets Fellowship, which you can learn more about on our website, undocupoets.org. And now for our first reader, Blue.
Thank you so much, Janine, for this introduction. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Dodge, and all of you here tonight. I'm really thankful to be here, and this year being nominated a Poetry Fellow with Undocupoet means a lot to me. Poetry has given me a lot of permission to live and write, and so let's begin. So this poem is titled Give Me Blue or Give Me Death, a Bargaining Period. In God's wildest purgatory, voices roam, bodiless, boundless as bruised wind on holy shores, rifting. Something must be, something must give, a lover then a poet, a damsel then a fly, mote, indivisible they wait, smiles leaking, baby teeth dissolving, their footsteps shrinking in the temporal dead zone, blue waxed sealed. This next one is titled Grieve Well, and it means a lot to me. I recently lost an uncle in March, and I finished this a few days before receiving that news, and this poem really carried me through that. Two trees in a patch of grass, and the cherries are plump and red. I live, bathed in bird song, machete strapped to belly, simmering earth shining softly. I live, for the sun warm on my face, and the nights bright eyed, waking to kill, for the parking lot full of sky, and a city wild as coot, veined and spotted. I live, waiting for a kiss, a hug, a hand, a record of romance, the vain melody, the vampires at my breast, going down for sleep. I live, a bath, a christening, raving. I live. And this next one is titled For You Where I Break, to C, D, and K. Fluttering in full, earth laughs with me. The cracks in my heart split wide, and that's where I place the seeds. And for my last one, The Moon and a Moth. I survived winter on Fa and Delusion. Now it's spring, and rose petals cover the sidewalk to grace my feet, and the jasmine bleeds into my skin, sweet venom feeding my body. I'm walking again, and my soul lingers out there in the river, still swaying with the bells of the church. My breath is filled with hymns and long forgotten songs. I'm yearning again in the tender rain, and my mother is aging. Thank you again.
All right, so thank you for those poems, Blue. I'm supposed to be asking Blue a question or two questions based on those poems. And one of the things that struck me is the sense of surrealism that
Mhm.
permeated through each of those poems. So I guess I have a two-part question. One, what is your poetic practice like? How do you begin to craft poems? How do you draft them? And then two, what is your relationship to surrealism in general?
Great questions. Love them. So, the first one, my process. So, I feel like my poems come to me in fragments. It'll be a word or a phrase, pieces of conversations, um, a lingering feeling or emotion, a lingering moment. I feel like every poem I write is my entire essence. It's like the imprint of my entire essence condensed in that moment, um, and offered in that form. Yeah, I write on everything I can find my hands on. I carry a little pocket notebook ever I go, and um, in my notes app. A lot of these were written in my notes app on my iPhone. And as for the second part of the question, surrealism, I was born in Haiti, and I come from a place where the magical or the surrealist is very much embedded into everything. I mean, when I think about um, some of the origin stories of my people, um, for example, like they're in the origin story or before the right before the revolution, the enslaved hosted or gathered or held this huge convening, and they cooked for each other, they fed each other, and they danced, and there was so much music, and there aren't necessarily a lot of like physical or tangible archival records that attest to a lot of that resistance or those moments that like made a difference. So yeah, like I feel like that's a part of who I am, and um, yeah, I thank you.
And
I really appreciate your questions. Go ahead.
just for clarification, because a lot of people may not know the pronunciation, Haiti as in Haiti, right?
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
no worries. I like those answers. Thank you very much. I've been reading a lot about Haiti as well. We can talk about that after.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to be following Blue. Thank you, Blue. My poems are a little bit longer, so I'm not going to do the whole thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll do that after. The first poem, Circadian, is published by, or was published by the Missouri Review. It begins with an epigraph from Robert Lowell's Skunk Hour. I hear my ill spirit sob in each blood cell, as if my hand were at its throat. I myself am hell, nobody's here. I quit the zombie drug cold turkey, and once the dregs of it freed my blood, they found me around noon, stuttering nude in a weedy cemetery. Dawn again in the PET scan graphic, symptoms of another sun's shrapnel in my brain, a planet erratic already in its pirouette. I too must live on a coin flip's whim, a true dual citizen of flame and shade, my demeanor locked loyal to a main emotion, either side of one sickness. No cycle is equally long before or vice versa, and when it happened that the sun had sicked its happy bondage on me, I had no choice but patience while it remained mounted, charring the chapters I recovered, a genius heat, austere and arrogant as God, non-stop talk like claws tearing at the eardrum, cymbals screaming, a bargain between us that it would finish only when it fed sufficient on my life, to snuff itself at the wreck of friendships and my many meanwhile passions. Now, mid-stride, I become the umbrage. The very head of me hinges into fog, 180 whipping the polar night back at random, my silence heavy as that tyranny of shining. Nausea gnaws through the layers, preying on pleasure. I am a distance wading in the knee-high now, blued limbs commuting crystal avenues, a Joneser whose jaws gawk here and there for leftover fire. Tonight I might remember the hot candle wax of love, sunflowers while I suffer this low libido season alone, until my prize after abiding the baggy eyes and black drag of its teeth, an appetite for more than just light, for life itself come the day these suicides fade, give way to the gears and volta, when at the end of such arachnid dark, my legs will thaw into a slow resurgence, after months of that white flag moon nursing the nocturnal inside my skull and stomach. Then I will feel the rabid gold climbing bright above the ranges, and under that coloring sky, manic with morning fire, my Icarian heart will gallop upward, grinning, unbridled wild again, endlessly forgetting the numbness of this night and the bridges still smoking from the light of former dawns. Thank you. That's my first poem. The last one on a similar theme, mental health. It's called Anxiety Attack. It was published by the Malahat Review earlier this year. Once, from a hospital bed, newly severed from all the cords and fondle of a second echo test, the chill of the gel and patches fresh as a tremor on my chest, I saw some crows, or the kin of crows, collect like boys below a banyan, and remembered my brothers. At the base, awaiting ready ganeps, I knocked toward them, our pores like gorging mouths that made a mango's mess of the heat. Then the pale tobacco lady, who believed me a thief, made her shout slip under my feet, a sandy dent where my descending body crackled after the branches had. With those crows, I wondered if, given the chance to change it, they would overthrow the omen of their color to make an amen in the eyes instead. Instead of prejudice, a promise, or maybe a kind of pride would make them keep it tucked in the prose of another author, the silvered accents of black on a player's lapels, the slip of ebonics, a clue as to who would sign their set and act a fool, blaze a field, behead a hamlet. I heard those young crows laugh as I lay in the wet taser of my nerves and knew I choose the nightmare of my skin again for the sake of the same sloppy fruit, the same brothers and the failing bushel of their arms, though this melanin means more reasons to feel the inquisitions in my stomach, the edges of wings etching a new doubt, each flap another plea to be repaired. Thank you very much. And Claudia is now going to ask me questions or a question.
Georgio, that was great. There were a lot of comments in the chat about just the sounds, the cadence, and when I was hearing a couple of words in the first poem, and like I heard showering, chapter, sunflower, suffering, planet, parrot. There's so much rhythm. So I was wondering, what's your revision process when you're working with all this music in your poetry?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So, my work, a lot of my work, as I'm preparing or writing, my first book, my first collection, it deals with a lot of memory, and I realized in my practice that alliterations and the repetition of certain sounds, assonance, kind of plays into the theme of memory, of recalling, constant recalling. And so, one of the things I've tried to do with my work is to ensure that the sounds almost feel like a rippling throughout, right? So it sometimes comes off as, you know, a rhyme scheme here and alliteration here, like you say, charring the chapters and parrot and this. And so in my practice, I'm very conscious of the sound, the music of it. Another thing is that I've been getting a lot into hip hop, like actually studying hip hop recently, Rakim, Kendrick Lamar, and those guys. And so I'm trying to see how well I can infuse certain hip hop techniques within poetry. My revision practice, sometimes it's overkill. Like sometimes you can see that you're using the thing a little too much, and it feels kind of saccharine in that way. And so what I usually do is I load everything onto the kind of like an impasto painting. You just load everything on, and then you go back after and you peel them away after that. Mhm.
Yeah,
Thanks for that
yeah.
question.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Claudia Rojas, and my pronouns are she, ella. I live in Falls Church, Virginia. Right now, I am calling in from Washington, D.C. I am participating in Refugee Council USA. They're doing advocacy days. So I'm going to share two poems, and at the end, I'm just going to share it's really just a couple of lines about inspired based on the conversations I've been having the past couple of days. So the first poem is about my experience fostering cats, and I wrote this in 2023. I submitted it for a contest at the public library, and I was really glad when it won in its category for odes. So this is called To Life with Foster Cats. 1. The little black panther arrived yesterday. Today it's Halloween and I'm dressed as myself, weighed by the chronic anxiety of a transient legal status, a work permit held for over 20 years, now over 24 years. There are mornings I get caught in that sinking of nothing matters, though I was doing so well the day before. Sitting outside in Old Town Alexandria, watching dogs in costume pass, hot dogs, bumblebees, and furry ones going into stores for treats. Isolation is symptomatic of the wrong company. After hours of work, I check up on the foster cat, who's been settled behind the sofa since yesterday, without meows. I wait for his eyes to poke out of the sofa, pretending I don't see him, so he can consider himself a triumphant and sneaky little one. We pretend he doesn't get the 12 a.m. zoomies. Now in daylight, he darts across the air in a movement I recognize. It's the movement of my soul, of my child self, the movement of nothing holds me down, of remembering I am more than a pay the bills machine. It's like flying on the ground the way he moves. I watch him claim space by leaving his scent on furniture. Watch him move toward me. I reach out like receiving flowers. I watch him curl into his body. Fur so full, so soft, so much like floating in a river of black rose petals. Love has such a small body, a body with a heart that doesn't carry my pain but can feel the same. His fear has been put aside. I lean into this trust, cradle the body, the friends we're going to be for the next few weeks or months, however long he'll be here in this transient life arrangement. 2. The little black panther was adopted months ago. Today I am folding laundry next to a closed window, sunshine flowing throughout this room. A bus stops and continues its route. Light reflects off my phone screen onto the wooden floor. And my new foster pause after the quick light, mistaking this for the elusive red dot. When the surprise element passes, I return to the laundry, open the window, and close my eyes. I receive the sun and hum to a soothing song, raising the volume. I allow my feet to move in a gentle rhythm, and the sweet company and comfort of white paws settled on the floor. She is a tuxedo cat asking for the basics of life, a clean space, water, food, and touch, a caring. Our love is dependent on nonverbal communication, hurried paws and expressive meows to signal it's breakfast time and you better get up. A dash behind the sofa and a folded body to signal to ask that I honor her alone time. Belly on the bed and expressive stares and meows to signal it's time for a petting of her ears. A tail swishing like slow motion clock hands. Everything is all right at this moment. It is safe here. There is love here, and there's more love on the way. So I've been doing a lot of like just conversations with refugees. And on June 20, it's World Refugee Day. And as part of a storytelling summit, I created a worksheet so that people could have like a little introduction and feel inspired to write poetry. So I had them write an acrostic for home and then do an acrostic for refugee. And I'm just going to share three of the lines that I just wrote recently. So I'm picking three of the ones that I really liked, and then that's all that I will share for today. Um, Roaming through my life's roses and rainbows, the thorn and thunder now mine. Exit signs in airports, train stations, and government buildings become ordinary. Good grief. The US is still a puppeteer of El Salvador's politicians. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Hi, I'm Wo Chan, pronouns they, them. Wow, thank you so much for your reading. I if you couldn't tell from the chat box, I was screaming internally over your cats poem. I love cats. I kind of have one, you can choose between these two questions. One of them is kind of silly and the other one's more serious. So silly one, what can cats teach us about writing poetry or poetry writing? Um, and the more serious one is, where outside of poetry do you go for inspiration or to refill the poetic well?
I really like the cat question. Could you put it in the chat? Because like I really want to think about it later.
Yeah,
Um,
oh, what?
and then
I'll
I
do that.
think, yeah, um, in terms of like getting inspiration, um, yeah, like I like to t go and take walks and just observe. Like I've always been just very observant of things, sounds, smells. I like to people watch. That's something that I feel always inspired and like listen to a lot of conversations. I practice a lot of active listening. And then going outside to gardens, nature. Sometimes I move away from the work and I don't write, and like I'm okay with that. I let the urge to constantly be writing, like I let it go, because sometimes there's other things that you need to experience and live life before you can sit down and write.
Yes, thank you. That sounds so true and so right. And I especially love the last part. Stepping back when you need some air. Hi, I'm Wo Chan. I'm gonna get started. I'm reading from my book Togetherness. Oh gosh, it's blurred out. Well, I don't know. It's fine. You can find a picture online. Um, I'm just gonna read sonnets and double sonnets. It's Pride Month. All the marvelous fish, they are psychic divas in the fish tank. We make such guts of the weirdo world that I've had enough of my own feelings for once. I don't like it either, the unvouched frustrations washing up wet in my jean shorts like last week's coupons. Can I really think my way out of this? I snap blurtingly. Jeremy, my therapist, returns tiltless. Well, why not? Lysergic acid in springtime made my eyeballs drip sweat, and I felt a new spine rise from ass to cervix. Gratitude is the central pillar of my life. That language could fall like nuts from a tree branch leads me to feel the ground in disbelief. The habits of your life simply become your life. Unsure if CBD makes the railing on the balcony warble or it's rain swizzling down the Uber window. Moisture makes my focus finicky. Marian squats, peering cannon-faced over my friend who wears Haribo gummies double taped to her areolas, half Vogue, half toddler play Phantasma. What can friendship do for us? You feel your world is crumbling. You need the words to devenomize fear. In each language, I worry, speak, still cry undarned, windsockishly. The old depression has not touched me the same way. Uncertainty dapples across the faces of my friends. They are clear shadows cast across the bottom of a pond on a slow, bright day. Everything will be fine. You'll be okay no matter what. I could feel the future shake across you right before our faces met. So I wrote that poem 5 or so years ago, and I actually wrote another poem to follow up, which is online. So I'm gonna read that now. And yeah, so this second poem is titled Wonder Wheel, and it's to the same friend. Wonder Wheel. Angels undress, and solstice has got us mini stilled. Hot hounds thrash east into ocean's marabou. Foam that is knowledge, our own gravy bods velveteen as time is giving. It's Pajan weather, krill pink past prime, past memory, and vistas futureful. I saw the backside of my own eyes, great no god carousel rouged as nutmeg with blood. The nerve. I mean, it was the nerve. My optics creamy yet thinning, hair moss in abundance, precise as the meridian. Not even a bird could escape becoming more like a bird. What is friendship? The same question I asked you returns, sparkling like a hot fixed comet between our minds. A friend is someone who sits with you, amphibian. Between water and land, a friend sits with you. And then a curtain opens. A woman reclining shines huge in absolute tableau, linen, white, skyline, paper, gender, Dame Cuchifrita, perfectly still, daring life to blink. We can't stop recording this immersive dream. Abuse shook once our early worlds, and this is how we met. It is a miracle to be a tube with legs. It is miraculous to be a coil in a bag, a patty in a briefcase, a living necklace, a two-legged descendant of clear-boned fish, an optimist. Us red rich bums more royal than crabs predate bliss. The washer ring O-shape of time fits us, tilts us well over sky's edge where somehow air sits gentlest. Crude, blue mesmero, glistening as fresh silk, to wet this globe with salt and glee, to unlatch the attic, to undo the sleeve. We finger most the principal fabric. And I'll read another that was on it, this time to dear friend JT. And this is from the book. Thank you. I have a minute. Okay. I'm so glad I got to see you, for JT. Somewhere between the feeling and the country, I sidle from sleep, floats my face on memory foam I made mushy with drool. We made plans. Meet me at the pie shop 2 avenues over, where the sun-beat goannas fan kicks a gray skirt over our heads. Your hair, a carrot's root, makes for soft transit. We did not order pie. We talked instead. You gave an eye contact that washed the beauty of sense right ahead of what I could see. What are all the words we know? Let's piece it together. Our mothers are intelligent. Papers have us isolated. Togetherness can be brutal, yet we need it. There's no justification. I think you are the bravest person I know, and that I can't predict the limits of what you can do. It is unfair to make a flag of your feelings. You are scared all the time, angry too. My nervousness spreads like jam on sourdough. You scoop earrings, vintage clip-ons on our way to Prospect. The stoop sale we pass in Park Slope clasps a violet bunch of ceramic flowers mid-sail on your earlobes. I photographed. The times we have failed our friends still haunt us. Some say comrades, siblings, or radicals. The path went thin. Blue scaffolding and trees sprout yet bond to whom? I barely know them. Rhetoric seems half cruel by now. By now, we've swaddled that baby smell. Each drop hinged tiger lily backbends a radiant lyre. I think that flowers can rhyme with anything. It's like an alien, you smile, terrified that humanity will one day colonize outer space. I'm scared of my desire. I joke that every movie set in space had to be filmed on Earth for closeness to the people that a genuine feeling can hurt. Thank you. And I think I'm supposed to, oh, hi.
Hi, I'm back. Wow, that was beautiful. I kept thinking a lot about rhythm as you were reading your poems. Like the rhythm made me think of catwalks, and I kept thinking about hands a lot. So I have two questions for you. The first one is a fun one. How does it feel being a diva? And then and then the second one is more serious. What do you wish people paid attention to more when they talk to you about your work? And I'm happy to read that again.
The diva question, that's so funny. I'm a vulnerable diva, so I'll be honest. It's
Love that.
exhausting. I'm tired all the time. Okay. But because it is a lot of work, and you also don't wanna, you also don't wanna be in a position either. So self-sufficient diva, maybe. Anyways, the second one, I wish people would notice my rhymes more. My rhymes, the specific connections between the rhymes. Like, I have a, I have a other poem in here where I try to rhyme eggplant with flower. I think very few people notice that little joke that I put in there. But yeah, there are little games and jokes and inner thinkings in the sonnets especially, just because of how they're shaped and
Mhm.
relate to each other.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm just like picturing or like just it's bringing up memories for me about friendship and all of the little games or just like life, all of that like that the game aspect, and I love that that's reflected in your poem. And it's like a game between like you and the words, and I really like that like visual.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right.
Hi again, everyone. I believe this concludes the recorded portion of our event tonight. I really wish we were in a real room together so that we could shake the space with our applause. Thank you, and maraming salamat to our Undocupoets Fellows for sharing your work tonight.